All right, what's going on? It's Bobby Skinner, Giants Nation, and I want to do a video ranking the Giants practice squad players. I did this video in 2021, and I meant to make it a yearly series, and for some reason, I just didn't. But, we spent all offseason talking about all 90 men on the roster, then week one hits, and we're focused on, the top 30 or so players. But these guys end up playing, right? A good amount of these guys are going to participate at some level in this season as injuries happen, as you get dissatisfied with certain players and they get released. So I wanted to do this practice squad rankings video. It's based off of my opinion of the player. One, or I guess one. Number two, are you on the roster with one injury to your position group? What would be your role be when inserted onto the team? And just intrigue of what you could be with some time. So make sure to like and subscribe. We are your number one spot for New York Giants coverage. Let's get into it. Number one, and there's 17 of these. Number one, Amir Smith-Marset. He is, in my opinion, the best returner on the team, but regardless of that, he is returning for the Giants if Gunnar gets injured or if he fumbles and they decide to pull him. And he had 2.7 returns per game last year, plus not, having to not fumble on fair catch punt returns. Those are important plays. That's a lot. That's a good amount of opportunities per game to make a play or make a mistake. And the return numbers are likely to go up with the touchback now going to the 35 on the new kickoff rule. So I can see the teams that need return help looking to yank him off the practice squad, similar to the Giants adding Amir Smith-Marset last year after their plan of Eric Gray as kick returner and Darius Slayton as punt returner didn't work out. Who could have seen the Giants return game plan not working out? So I hope Smith-Marset is here, and if and when needed, and that's why he's number one on the list for me. And another part of the criteria is like, how much am I worried about you getting snagged up by another team? And Amir Smith would be number one in that category. Number two is a defensive tackle. And I think this is going to be a little surprising for some people, but it's Elijah Garcia. Garcia had an awesome preseason working as like a pass rusher. And I do think he shined in a very dim period for the Giants last year in the last 6 games of the season. When he was added to the team, he had 6 run stops in 6 games. And that was number one on the team for defensive tackles with a 9.5% stop rate. It's obviously a small sample size, but that's higher than Dexter Lawrence. But I just like the juice that he brought. And I think he has a bit of a two-way game. The Giants defensive tackle group, again, is very weak, and he's one injury away from contributing to this team. I know people are expecting another defensive tackle in Elijah Chapman, but I think Garcia gives you more normal value instead of being extremely situational like an Elijah Chapman would be. Number 3 for me, wide receiver Lil Jordan Humphrey. I'm not a huge Lil Jordan Humphrey fan, despite his and Jackson Dart's connection down the field in the preseason game for a touchdown and a couple back shoulders in practice. I think he's a very low-effort blocker. His releases take way too long, and his route tree is somewhat limited. But you could still make an argument that he's the best backup wide receiver on the team over Jalen Hyatt and Bo Collins. I'd probably go Bo Collins, but Humphrey has the most NFL experience with a career of 770 yards and 7 touchdowns, including a career high of 300 yards last year. So, again, I just don't think he's that far away from getting a target in game. He's 6'4". He's a big body. Like, you know how to use him, and he's not, going to be in the wrong place, at least from, what I saw in preseason and practice film. And that size does make him an option down the field. So number 3, Lil Jordan Humphrey. Number 4, I'm going a new addition. That's linebacker Swayze Bozeman. That's 6'2", 225 pounds. Bozeman could actually make a run to play for the Giants this year as a special teamer. He played 67% of the special team snaps for the Chiefs in the playoffs last year after being added from the practice squad in Week 14. The Giants roster Demetrius Flanagan-Fauci on this roster strictly for special teams, it seems. And the Giants did lose Ty Summers to injury, who was one of their biggest cogs on special teams last year after being added to the practice squad this time last season. He spent preseason with the Bears. His bench, vertical jump, shuttle, and 40-time were all elite numbers at his pro day. Pro day numbers can be a little bit wonky, but he seems like the type of guy who can carve out a role in the league with his special team ability. Number 5 is another guy that's, new to the New York Giants, and that's linebacker Zaire Barnes. A 2023 6th-round pick from the Jets at 6'1", 225. Barnes is an undersized linebacker, but he plays with speed and good lateral quickness and aggression. And he worked as a gap shooter when getting preseason run early, and then he spent last year on the IR for the Jets. Uh, he might be a guy who can challenge to actually play linebacker at some point. He's someone who played DB his first 2 seasons at Western Michigan before converting to linebacker, and I always like that positional change guys just to give them an opportunity on the practice squad and maybe they develop into something. He's never really had a shot to develop at linebacker outside of his rookie season. So putting number 5, Zaire Barnes coming over from the Jets. Number 6, I'm going guard, Jake Kubis. Kubis was on the Giants active roster all of 2024 as an undrafted free agent out of North Dakota State, which has produced a lot of NFL offensive linemen. He got some action late in the year where he did fairly well in the run game, but struggled a lot as a pass protector. The Giants do have 5 backup offensive linemen rosters, so you would think the top guy in the practice squad wouldn't mean much. But 2 of those guys are somewhat only offensive tackles in James Hudson and Marcus Bowe. I know Marcus Bowe, there could be a position switch at some point, but he's only worked at tackles this far of his career. Austin Schlottman has played guard in his career, but I think they view him mostly as a backup center only. And then you have Aaron Stinney and Evan Neal as your backup guards. I think Stinney should be the top backup. But there's a chance that Kubis could be better than Evan Neal eventually, and that could thrust him onto the roster if someone gets injured. Also, Kubis has worked at some center, which is where I could see his best opportunity being in the NFL. But regardless, he is someone that they carried on the roster as an undrafted free agent rookie. I think they still like Kubis despite him having what I thought was a bad overall preseason. Number 7, safety Raheem Lane. Lane worked on the Giants' second team all of training camp. He spent most of the last year on the Giants practice squad before entering the lineup at the end of the season and then getting injured. He was a special teams player for the Chargers before that. I could swap someone else on this list with him in the rankings, but I'm giving him the nod based off of seniority. Reality is that they're one safety injury away from him being signed to the active roster. He really hasn't shown anything when I've been at camp or watched preseason games, which is good and bad because he's not getting targeted. But he gave up no catches in preseason, had a pass breakup. So, wasn't a pick-on player for opposing quarterbacks or in the Giants preseason or even training camp. Number 8, tight end Kadir Ismail. This is the practice squad player I want to be the most intrigued by. Ismail is a 6'6", 232-pound tight end who is playing tight end essentially for the first time. This guy played quarterback at Villanova, but before moving to wide receiver and transferring to Stanford. Now, he only had 12 catches as a senior for Stanford as a wide receiver. Spent last year on the Ravens practice squad and then spent the offseason with the Raiders. He had 4 catches for 42 yards for the Raiders in preseason. He checks all the Bobby Skinner weird obsession boxes: size and speed, a.k.a. raw talent, position change, rookie minicamp invite turn signing, and, paired with that, a team like the Ravens did that. He's also a son of of an NFL player. His father, Quadri Ismail, was a 10-year vet. He was actually on the Super Bowl 35 Ravens. You remember that game? He had a 1 catch for 44 yards in the Super Bowl. But he had 2,000-yard receivers. And then there's a similar, somewhat success story that the Giants have used in Lawrence Cager. Now, Cager's not this, right home about guy, but he has been a guy who the Giants have carried on the active roster and scored a couple touchdowns for them. The issue is they just doesn't check the really good preseason box. And that's important for these speedy converts that's when you see these guys shine. Greg Dulcich being the perfect example of that. Number 9, and I know people are like, where is this guy? I'm going running back Dante Turbo Miller. The Giants could go with 2 running backs if one were to get injured. But if one misses more than a little bit of time, Miller will get the call to be RB3 for the Giants. Unlike a typical running back 3 call-up, I could see him getting a snap or 2 to take advantage of his speed. And then Singletary missed time in 2024. He's a little older. Cam Scatterby was banged up all summer in training camp. So the opportunity could be there for Dante Miller to make his way. And he did lead the Giants in receiving yards in the preseason based almost exclusively off screens. I don't ever see a scenario where they're giving him multiple carries in a game, but a third down spot here or there is possible. Number 10, safety Patrick McMorris, a 2024 6th-round pick out of Cal, taken in the Tom Brady draft slot of pick 199, is lower on this list simply because they have 2 safeties on the practice run. I'm giving the nod to Raheem Lane, like I said before. He's only played 8 snaps as a rookie for the Dolphins last year and then got some special teams run the last 6 games off of the season after being on IR. Dolphins fans were impressed with his rookie preseason as attacker, which could lend to some special team snaps. Number 11, Timon Fox. This is year 4 Timon Fox. Year 4 for Timon Fox with the Giants. He was the lone undrafted free agent from Joe Shane's first season to make him the initial 53-man roster. I was ready to have Fox even lower on this list, but the Giants released Trace Ford to make room for others, which now makes Timon Fox the first guy up at outside linebacker. I still have him low, though, because Fox is 27 years old now, and we know what we're getting for him. Like, he's someone who understands the position, and he's played over 400 snaps last year of defensive specials, but he is a negative when he's out there, and he's also playing outside linebacker, which is the Giants' best and deepest spot on the team. Number 12. Elijah Chapman. He was a surprise cut, so you would think that that goes number 1. But now that he was cut, I think it's a hard time. There's a hard time for putting him back on the field because he gives you no value on first and second down because of his lack of size. If he's in there running they're running right at him on third and long. We know that they're going to put Abdul Carter and Chauncey Golston inside. Darius Alexander should take that role eventually, the second pass rushing defensive tackle. They're never going to use him as a fullback if he's not on the roster already. So he had some use in 2024 because they had no one else to set up those third and long stunts. The only reason he was a surprise cut, though, was because we thought the Giants loved him. It's not like he didn't have this great camp or preseason at defensive tackle. I thought he looked bad. But the fullback stuff had you intrigued, but it seems like that was kind of all for naught. So now that we know they don't love him, I just don't see the path for playing for Elijah Chapman. Number 13, offensive lineman McClendon Curtis. Curtis has never played in the NFL outside of being on the field goal team, and the Giants have listed him as a guard specifically on their website. I've seen some cut-ups of him playing in space and making some hits by Liam Sheehan of Giants Future and Sanji T, who covered him with the Raiders, and that is somewhat impressive for a guy that's 6'6", 325 pounds. He was a UDFA for the Raiders in 2023 before spending that year and the next with the Seahawks. He spent this offseason with the Cardinals before ending with the Giants. Watching the Senior Bowl coming out of the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and I just don't remember much being notable from McClendon Curtis. Number 14, center Brian Hudson. Hudson is a strong man. He was at the top of the board for the Giants weightlifting. I remember seeing a screenshot of that in season. He gave up one pressure in preseason and was really good as a run blocker. And this is a guy who I could see next offseason the Giants forcing to take a little more serious as a depth piece. He was originally a Lions undrafted free agent, spent last year on the Patriots practice squad before joining the Giants practice squad and then signing a futures contract. Good preseason, but third-string offensive line performance in preseason rarely lead to much. And the fact is they have a backup center already, so it's just hard to find him getting onto the roster this year. They may value Jay Kubis as a center over him as well, too. So number 14, Brian Hudson. Number 15, kicker Jude McAtamney. He's the backup kicker, but he's here on an exemption spot due to the International Pathway Program. That's why there's 17 instead of 16 spots. The former Rutgers kicker is simply only going to be called upon if something freak happens to Graham Gano, like it did in 2024 against Washington, and they need him there just in case. So, he made a 31-yard field goal and an extra point last year, but in reality is they signed Greg Joseph when they needed a kicker and would expect the Giants to do the same in 2025 if Gano goes down or falters. Number 16, the first guy out, cornerback D. Williams. He would be a lot higher on this list if the Giants didn't bring in Gunnar Olszewski because he had, D. Williams had 25 returns last year, but Amir Smith-Marset is simply higher on the totem pole for returner. So the likelihood of D. Williams getting the call is low. He also struggled greatly in preseason as a corner, so I doubt he gets the nod as cornerback depth if injury strikes at that position. And last and least, to me at least, is number 17, defensive tackle Jordan Riley. The 2023 7th-round pick was a bragging point for the Giants about this, gem they found at this time a couple years ago, but now is an afterthought and lower than DJ Davidson on the roster and Elijah Chapman and Elijah Garcia on the practice squad. He was pretty terrible last year when called upon to play. The moment I was just totally out with him was the Eagles game where they just let a bullet him going down the field as a relief for Dexter Lawrence. And it gives you no pass rush value. he essentially gives you no value. So last is Jordan Riley. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you don't take it personally, Jordan Riley, or do take it personally. Get better. So like and subscribe to the channel. Again, Friday preview pod. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.